Hey, Swedish Therapeuts here. Hey, um, so I don't know if we're gonna get to my mom today, which is unfortunate, but it might happen. It might be a video there. But I woke up last night in the middle of the night, and I had this very clear train of thought. It's not one of the ones that goes off the rails like my daughter talks about, but it was I can do better about explaining mechanical force. And the reason that this is important is the whole reason I'm writing this letter about my mom to the world, to all you young people and common folk like me, so that we can learn from what's happened to her and might be what's happening to other people. So if you're with me and you're willing to kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, it'd be nice to have you along and to see if we can explain better mechanical. We have biology, which is all of us, and we have chemistry that we learn in school. So our chemicals that are inside of us, we talk about those when we talk about genes and how they important they are, and then we talk about environmental factors and how important they are. But it's not very often that we're talking about mechanical forces. And again, like yesterday, I will say this is not mechanical in the fact of um, your car is full of parts, and you can take off the muffler and put a new muffler on. You can take off the tires and put new tires on. And yeah, sure, it really depends on who's driving and how they're driving, uh, what kind of get condition the car will be in. But the thing is, a car is a car is a car. And if a car is injured, it doesn't heal itself. It needs a mechanic. But that's the whole thing. Biology, if something is injured, it heals itself. So this is where mechanical force and truc, so something that pushes down, that creates compression. And so there's this great thing called tensegrity. And I'm not using a big word in order to scare you away, but tensegrity it's about tension and compression and how something is held together. So the best example is if you think of if you can blow a bubble, and that surface tension around that bubble that holds its shape, that's perfect. Or a drop of water, that's even better. And that's what I did at 3 o'clock this morning. And I told myself, it's too early to write this down. Just remember a drop of water, and then everything else will just flow. So come with me. Let's let's do a little bit of flow, and let's go down a dive. Okay. I want to introduce you to Donald Ingber, and he spoke at one of the fascial research conferences. I think one of the first ones in 2007. Um, and Bruce Schofield did a great documentary um, with him, and I'm only going to share just a little bit. So I haven't gotten permission from Bruce ahead of time, but this is really important to the understanding of mechanical force. And I can't explain it as well as um, Donald Ingvar. Okay, so hang out with me. Let's share the screen so then we can go and we can watch just a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So it's not very much. Stick with me. Right now, we're on the documentary that was done by Bruce in 2019, Secret Life of Fascia Part 1, and time code is 4318. So I've bought this title on Vimeo, and feel free to go ahead and do it. Um, but just take a listen.
Think about physicality and the idea that mechanical forces may be as important as chemicals and genes for development. One of the properties of tensegrity that as you apply force on it, it gets stiffer and stiffer in direct proportion as you apply more stress. That turns out to be a fundamental property of cells, tissues, molecules, and that's because basically tensegrity is used at all size scales in the hierarchy of life. And I call that the architecture of life in my Scientific American in '98. And recently people are confirming molecules are built this way. I confirm cells are built this way. Our bodies are built this way. It turns out tissues are built this way. So it actually is a fundamental design principle, and it's a principle that it's very broad and it applies to all facets of biology of living systems.
So tensegrity has been proven to be.
Okay, so the last thing you saw there is a tensegrity model, and then that tensegrity model, that's the next thing I want to chit chat with you about. So, because tensegrity is being taken into space, so all of you young people, the coolest thing is if you have this desire that you want to go work with NASA, great. Or if you're in China and you want to work with your program, great. Or India is now getting into it, and there's going to be a lot of space travel all over the place. We're going to need robots because our bodies aren't designed to withstand that kind of force. So robots have to move, and it is very tough to get a robot to move like us. But there are people working on it. Just cool. And you know what? They're using something called tensegrity, just like Donald Ingber talked about, because that's how life is put together. There's a lot of tensegrity models that you'll see out there with lots of triangles and pyramids and cubes. But you know, a triangle can make a lot of shapes, but a triangle also can make a sphere. Actually, a pyramid can make a sphere, or icosahedron. That's a big word. So there goes my train right off the track. But come on back. All right. So the next thing I want to do is to share how NASA is using tensegrity, because again, this is a mechanical force, which if we can break that down, it's compression and tension. An easier way is to say push and pull. So let's just make it simple. It's push and pull. But check this out. I think it's fun. Yeah. So this is NASA, and this is one guy talking, and it's from 2015.
So the initial inspiration was you took one of these toys and you said, what can we use this for? Well, they make them as baby toys because they're really safe. It's hard to break them, hard to hurt yourself with it, hard for a baby to hurt themselves with it. And you can throw it on the ground really hard. You're not going to break it. We're like, hey, that's a landing robot. We are using tensegrity structures, which are these tensile networks that are very shock absorbent, compliant. And we're using those to build robots or planetary landers that can land on another planet, absorb that impact shock, and then that very same structure is your robot that enables mobility on the planetary surface. So why, as engineers, would we care about these types of structures? As you interact with the environment and you have different forms of interactions, I want to pick something up, I want to walk across different terrains, the stiffness of your structure ends up having a very direct impact on your efficiency, your effectiveness, how you respond to things. And so being able to tune that stiffness and either make it stiffer or floppier is one of the sort of holy grails of modern robotics. And these types of structures enable that by changing the overall tension of the structure. You can turn it from being very stiff to being very floppy. This is one of the first.
Okay, so being very stiff to very floppy. And this is one of the reasons pretty much that I'm here with you meeting my mom, is because I don't think it's really her age. Uh, you know, there's 80-year-olds, there's 87-year-olds, there's people out there that are older than her that are doing well. There's people that are younger than my mom that are doing well. But this idea of the stiffness, and if something is too stiff, like if a hurricane comes in and something is too stiff, instead of like a tree bending, it will break. So now we've talked about mechanical. And let's see if this video gets posted. But I certainly hope, if you are so much more interested in finding out about tensegrity, there you go. And I will leave it there, and we'll talk again at another time. And tack så hemskt mycket för kom hit till Swedish Terapeut. Tack så hemskt mycket, which means thank you very much. But vi ses. Hej då!